In the heart of the American West, where vast plains meet rugged mountains and the sun sets in a blaze of orange and red, stood a saloon known only to a few, the Hallowed Rest. It was a place of laughter, music, and the clinking of glasses, a refuge for weary travelers and seasoned cowboys. But beneath its facade of warmth and hospitality lay dark secrets that turned the saloon into a graveyard of whispers, a place where every cowboy who fell in love met an untimely end. As the saloon doors swung open, a scent of whiskey mingled with the remnants of sweat and cigar smoke. Inside, rough-hewn wood and flickering lanterns cast a soft glow over the faces of patrons. Stories of valor and distant lands were exchanged, each cowboy hoping to impress the beautiful women who frequented the establishment. But what they didn't know was that love, here, was a dangerous game. The first of the legends to emerge from the Hallowed Rest was that of Jack Laramie, a young cowboy with dreams bigger than the West itself. With his charming smile and rugged good looks, he quickly captured the attention of Clara, the saloon's enchanting singer. She was the kind of woman who seemed to embody the very essence of the sun, bright, warm, but with a fierce glow that could burn. Jack fell hard, and his heart knew no bounds. Yet Clara was hiding something. Night after night, she sang sweet melodies that softened the hearts of men, but behind those captivating eyes were secrets that would turn love into a curse. Jack was not the first to be drawn in by her beauty, nor would he be the last. Many before him had ventured into the depths of their affection for her, only to vanish without a trace, leaving little more than a lingering song in the air. As weeks passed, Jack and Clara's connection deepened. He would slip her notes between the pages of songs, and she would smile knowingly, her laughter laced with an unease that only she understood. One fateful night, unable to resist the pull of his emotions, Jack declared his love for her in front of the whole saloon. The air thickened with tension, and silence enveloped them both. To everyone's astonishment, Clara accepted, but instead of joy, Jack felt a chill wash over him. With Clara's acceptance, a shadow seemed to drift into the room, unseen but palpable. A hush fell over the saloon, broken only by the crackling of the fire. In that moment, patrons exchanged uneasy glances, sensing they were witnesses to a far more dangerous story than they anticipated. Days turned into nights as love blossomed in the world of the Hallowed Rest. Jack spent every waking moment with Clara, often ignoring the warnings of his fellow cowboys. Old-timers shook their heads, recounting tales they'd heard of how many had come before him with hearts full of hope, only to be left broken, or worse. They whispered of men whose names had been forgotten, of songs that had never been sung, but Jack would not listen. He was smitten, blinded by affection, a moth to a flame. But that flame burned fiercely. One evening, as a storm raged outside, Jack and Clara exchanged promises under the dim light of the lanterns. Deep in the shadows, a storm brewed that would shatter their dreams. The winds howled like the ghosts of cowboys past, hinting at the fate that awaited anyone who dared to love Clara. As the clock struck midnight, the ground trembled, and the lights flickered ominously. Then came the sounds of muffled cries, an eerie melody of despair that seeped into the saloon's walls. Jack, worried, shook Clara gently, demanding to know what was happening. She hesitated, her gaze drifting toward the faint outline of the basement door, the door that remained shut, yet seemed to beckon them. Her silence spoke volumes, yet Jack was too far gone in love to perceive the warnings. Compelled by a force he could neither understand nor resist, Jack grabbed Clara's hand and led her toward the basement. As they descended, a chill washed over him, the shadows slithering closer. The air grew thick with tension, each step echoing like a heartbeat, growing louder as they approached the bottom. The darkness was suffocating, and Jack hesitated, scanning the black void for any sign of danger, but Clara stepped forward, leading him into the unknown. What lay within the confines of that basement was the final chapter of a monstrous tale. The walls told stories of longing and heartbreak, laughter twisted into cries, and joys turned into sorrow. Bones littered the floor, remnants of men who had once dared to love Clara. The air grew dense and stifling, as if the weight of their pain hung suspended between breaths. Jack's heart raced, and he turned to Clara demanding answers. But she only smiled, an innocent look that turned sinister as the truth unfurled. "You shouldn't have come here, Jack," she whispered, her voice dripping with a honeyed malice that sent chills down his spine. "You are just like the others, drawn in by the music, the laughs, and the beauty. But they didn't realize the price of loving me." As fear washed over him, Jack attempted to flee. But it was too late. The very ground beneath them seemed to shift, pulling him closer to the remnants of those who had come before. An overpowering darkness enveloped the room, storming in with a vengeance. Clara's face twisted into something otherworldly, her beauty now a mask concealing a predator's smile. In the heart of that cursed saloon, Jack Laramie met his fate, just as countless others had before him. Only the shadows bore witness to his screams, echoing through the night as silence reclaimed the hallowed rest. Love had twisted into something vile, and he, like the cowboys before him, would never leave to tell the tale. And so the legend of the hallowed rest continued, a bittersweet melody lingering in the air, drawing in more unsuspecting hearts. Each new cowboy, lost in dreams of love, would charm the enchanting Clara, blissfully oblivious to the graveyard of broken souls that lay just beneath their feet. The stories of their loves would fade, echoing only in the whispers carried by the wind, leaving the hallowed rest as a haunting reminder of love's dark side, a saloon where every cowboy fell in love, and none lived to tell it. As tales of the hallowed rest spread like wildfire across the plains, whispers of its enchantment and danger caught the ears of many a wandering cowboy. Each lost soul believed they were the one who could unravel Clara's secrets, convinced that love alone could break the curse that bound the saloon in a shroud of darkness. Among them was Thomas Reed, a rugged drifter with a heart full of hopes and dreams. With his wide-brimmed hat tilted low and a swagger in his step, he arrived at the hallowed rest under a canvas of starlit skies. The moment he stepped through the saloon doors, the warm glow of lanterns illuminated his face as patrons turned to assess the latest newcomer. But it was Clara's eyes that drew him in, bright and piercing, a magnet that pulled him closer. As she sang, her voice draped the room in a velvet embrace, every note vibrating with a haunting allure. Thomas felt a warmth envelop him, a sense of belonging he hadn't known for years. He took a seat at the bar, ordering a whiskey, but all the while keeping his gaze locked on the captivating songstress. Night after night, Thomas returned to the hallowed rest. With each visit, the bond between him and Clara deepened as they shared stolen glances and whispered words. Yet amid the clouds of happiness, an undercurrent of unease rippled through the air. Fellow cowboys exchanged knowing glances, flipping dice or playing cards, mouths flapping with cautionary tales about Clara, how her beauty was matched only by the tragedy that befell those who professed their love for her. But Thomas was not deterred. In the shadows of the saloon, he was determined to write his own ending. He spoke to her in soft tones, his words wrapped in sincerity. Clara listened with a smile, her laughter echoing, but something hidden flickered behind her eyes, a glint of shadows, hinting at the secrets she kept. One fateful evening, emboldened by the rapture of the moment, Thomas took Clara's hand as he led her outside the saloon. The night air was crisp, the stars twinkling overhead like sparkling diamonds scattered across a velvet sky. He pulled her close, the world around them fading into nothingness. "Clara," he whispered, "I believe we can escape this place together." Clara's expression darkened, her smile faltering as the weight of his words lingered in the air. "Escape?" she echoed softly, her voice trembling. "You don't understand, Thomas. The threads of this curse are woven too tightly. Any attempt to break free will only bring pain." But Thomas, fueled by love, refused to hear the ominous echoes that surrounded her words. He leaned in, pressing his forehead against hers, the warmth of their connection igniting courage. "We can find a way. We'll break it together." Just promise me you'll try." For a brief moment Clara was silent, a stillness swallowed by the night. "All right," she finally said, her voice barely a whisper, yet laden with a heaviness he could not ignore. "If that's what you truly want, we will find a way." As dawn broke, coloring the horizon in peach and mauve, Thomas felt hopeful. Blood rushed through his veins, and he imagined a life without the shadows that haunted the hallowed rest, a life where laughter rang true and love flourished without fear. But not all was as it seemed. Just as he approached the saloon that evening, eager to discuss their plans, he overheard hushed conversations among the patrons. One old-timer leaned in, voice low but shaking with urgency. "There's another disappearance, I tell you." This time, it was Thomas Green, a fine young man gone just like the others. Thomas froze, the blood draining from his face. A sickening feeling gripped his stomach. It seemed the specter of loss loomed large, taunting him with the names of those who had come before. Had he unwittingly stepped into a trap, a cycle he could not escape? With resolve, he pushed through the saloon doors, steeling himself against the heavy air. Clara was there, poised on the stage, her melodic voice weaving through the crowd. But tonight, her eyes met his with a look of sorrow. "Thomas," she called, her words punctuated by the song. "I fear the darkness is coming for you." A knot twisted in his throat. "Clara, we need to talk. I heard about Thomas Green. I can't ignore this." He gripped the edge of the bar, willing her to understand the urgency. As the last notes of her song faded, the room fell silent, all eyes fixing upon them. Her expression shifted, a mix of pain and resignation settling on her features. "It's not just the men who fall in love with me, Thomas. The spirits of those who never left haunt this place. They'll do anything to keep me trapped. If you love me, you must turn away." "But I won't." Before he could finish his sentence, the air thickened, a tangible force crashing over them. The sound of chairs scraping against the floor filled the saloon as patrons began to back away, horror painted on their faces. Shadows danced along the walls, creeping ever closer, hungry for the light. "Run!" Clara urged, desperation cracking her voice. "You are not like the others. Don't let them claim you." In that instant, a flicker of realization struck him. The curse was not merely about Clara. It was woven into the very fabric of the hallowed rest. It sought to ensnare new souls, feeding off their love and despair. Thomas hesitated, torn between the pull of Clara's hand and the dread of what lay behind him. But then, in a moment of clarity, he understood. He couldn't break free. They couldn't escape as long as they were together within the grasp of this malevolent force. With a fierce determination, he turned to flee, heart racing as he pushed through the sea of startled patrons. Behind him, Clara's cries echoed, the pain palpable in her voice. "Thomas, you can't leave me." His heart ached, but survival trumped love in that desperate moment. As he burst through the back door of the saloon, the air hit him like a cold wave, invigorating yet terrifying. He ran blindly into the night, away from the saloon's ominous shadows, toward the safety of the open plains. But the ground beneath him felt alive, as if it were trying to pull him back into the depths of darkness. Yet as he fled into the moonlit landscape, Thomas felt the weight of Clara's despair lift slightly. He could still hear her voice, calling out to him from the saloon, but the distance began to feel like a protective barrier. The chill of the night air stung his cheeks, but his heart raced with adrenaline and newfound determination. As he stumbled through the rocky terrain, he quickly realized that he could not abandon Clara without a plan. The chilling reality struck him. As long as he lived, Clara was trapped. He couldn't let another soul be added to the list of lost hearts that once formed a part of the hallowed rest. The weight of his love shifted from a burden to a mission. He would return, not to succumb to the allures of the saloon, but to save her, to free her from the chains that bound her to the curse. Gathering himself, he turned back toward the flickering lights of the saloon, emboldened by the bravery that surged within him. As he approached the entrance once more, he steadied his breath, fear and love intertwining in a fierce dance. Pushing through the swinging doors, he was met with the same haze of smoke and whispers. The air crackled with energy, a palpable tension wrapping around him like a thick blanket. Patrons stared, their expressions mingling curiosity with apprehension. And there she was, Clara standing alone in the center of the saloon, her figure illuminated by a single lantern hanging overhead. She looked both ethereal and lost, the weight of sorrow hanging in the air like storm clouds. "Thomas," she breathed, her voice trembling as if she knew he'd return. "You shouldn't be here. They'll come for you. They always do." He stepped forward, his resolve mingling with the power of her gaze. "I'm not leaving you, Clara. I won't abandon you to this fate." The silence in the saloon grew heavy, a gathering storm as patrons glanced nervously at one another. "You don't understand," she said, her voice just above a whisper. "You can't love someone who's cursed. The spirits, they feed off of your affection, your energy." "I'll find a way," he insisted, desperation creeping into his voice. "We'll break this curse together." In that moment, the shadows in the saloon grew darker, twisting and writhing as if awakened by his declaration. Whispering voices floated through the air, carrying the echoes of those who had come before. Lost souls wanting to plead their case, warning him to turn back before it was too late. "Leave while you still can," one voice cried out, a spectral wail that chilled him to the bone. But Thomas refused to listen. As he reached for Clara, the saloon seemed to tremble with ethereal force, as if the very ground were protesting their union. "Stay away from her!" a voice boomed, reverberating through the wooden beams of the saloon. "She belongs with us!" "No!" Thomas shouted, grounding himself. "She is not yours. Clara, we can do this." He pulled her close, feeling her warmth against him, invigorating his spirit. "We'll face them together. We will shine brighter than their darkness." As if in response, the shadows formed a figure, a wraith-like being that hovered ominously over the bar, laughing coldly. "You think you can escape? You think love will save you? Love has haunted this place for years, and it always ends in tragedy." Every patron in the saloon stood frozen, mesmerized by the confrontation unfolding before them. The wraith floated closer, piercing gazes locked onto Thomas. "Witness the fate of those who dared to defy this curse." Suddenly, visions swirled in the air, embodying the tragic ends of lost souls. Cowboys wandering into the hallowed rest under the guise of love, only to vanish when they pledged their hearts. Each face merged into the next, each story a haunting reminder of the futility of romance within these cursed walls. But Thomas stood firm, determined to redefine the narrative. "Your fear cannot bind us. Together, we are stronger than all that you have taken." Infused with courage, he pulled Clara closer, their eyes locking in a moment of mutual understanding and strength. The saloon trembled, shadows writhing more violently as if the air around them was charged with fear. "Together, we shall cast you out," Thomas proclaimed, raising his voice. "No longer are we captive to your twisted tale." The shadows writhed in rage, and the wraith screamed in fury. "You dare challenge the bond of despair? You will pay dearly for this." But Thomas felt a surge of conviction. He clasped Clara's hands tight, and together they began to sing, their voices rising above the chaos. Melodies that intertwined with their love, echoes of hope overflowing with passion. Their voices resonated, wrapping the saloon in warmth, transforming fear into light. As their lyrics danced through the air, the shadows recoiled, faltering against the power of their love. The wraith howled in anguish, its form flickering as if caught in a storm. "No! This cannot be!" With one final heartfelt note, the saloon erupted in brilliant light, washing over the shadows, banishing them from the hallowed rest. The wraith shrieked one last time before dissolving into nothingness, leaving only silence in its wake. And just like that, the curse, a scourge once insurmountable, was shattered by the purity of Thomas and Clara's love. Cheers erupted in the saloon, hearts filled with joy replacing the dread that had once hung heavy in the air. Thomas and Clara stood hand in hand, basking in the glow of their victory, allowing their connection to triumph over darkness. Little did they know, however, that while they had cast out one shadow, remnants of malevolence lingered, waiting for their next unwitting victims. The allure of the hallowed rest would always call to the wandering hearts of cowboys, but now they had become the living tale, one filled with love, resilience, and the undeniable truth that together they could face whatever darkness came their way, reminding others that love, indeed, was a force to be reckoned with, one that could light even the darkest of places. As dawn broke over the hallowed rest, golden light poured through the windows, illuminating the saloon. Thomas and Clara stood at the center, bathed in the warmth of the morning sun, their hearts swelling with triumph. The hauntings of the past had dissipated, leaving the saloon a place of laughter and joy once more. Patrons who had once shivered under ghostly whispers now celebrated, raising their glasses to the couple who had dared to challenge despair. Yet, amid the festivities, a lingering unease settled over Thomas. He could feel the eyes of the spirits watching, remnants of the darker tales still etched in the corners of the room. While the curse had been broken, shadows of fear can often linger long after hope has ignited. Clara sensed his apprehension, her expression softening as she turned to him. "Are you all right?" she asked, concern lacing her words. "I'm just wondering," Thomas replied, scanning the room. "We defeated that wraith, but will the others remain? Will they return, seeking vengeance?" Clara's brow furrowed, her brow reflecting the storm of thoughts swirling in her mind. "I believe we have staved off the worst, but darkness has its way of creeping back. Every tale has its shadows, and while we've cast away one, it doesn't mean others won't seek to take its place." As they spoke, the lively atmosphere of the bar began to fade slightly, the laughter growing distant as an unnerving chill slithered through. The whispers returned, not from familiar faces, but sharper, more accusatory, echoing like an angry wind through the establishment. "You think this is over?" a voice hissed, a phantom presence carrying the weight of lost souls long forgotten. "You haven't understood what you've awoken. The curse is more than a wraith, it's a force. It thrives on love, binds love to despair." Thomas felt his chest tighten. "Who speaks?" he demanded, voice strong but trembling. Emerging from the shadows, a figure stepped into view, a tall, gaunt man with hollow eyes that shone with a haunting glow. His presence was an embodiment of despair. "I am Thomas Finch," he said, weaving himself into the fabric of their reality. The saloon felt colder as his name reverberated through the hall. "I fell to Clara's charms, just as you have. Love blinds the heart, and you will soon be the next despair to feed this cursed ground." Clara froze, her breath hitching at the mention of a name she thought lost to the darkness. "Thomas Finch? But how?" Finch's hollow laughter echoed, cruel and chilling. "You thought you could rid yourselves of the curse with a mere song? Love is as much a chains as it is a balm, and you have awakened something that may be worse than what you faced before." The revelation struck like lightning. Thomas could see the flickering fear washing over the faces of the patrons, and soon the once jubilant energy faded into an air of foreboding. Mrs. Hallowed, the bartender, dropped her glass, shattering the facade of joy, sending shards of glass scattering across the wooden floor like broken dreams. "No, you can't take this from us," Thomas shouted back at Finch, shaking with determination. "This place has been freed. Clara and I will fight as long as we breathe." Finch's eyes narrowed, glimmering with malice. "Fight all you want, but you've awoken the secret keepers, the true guardians of despair. They will come for you, and they will drag your hearts into the depths of the curse you think you've conquered. They thrive on your love. Use it against you. You've merely delayed your reckoning." Before Thomas could rebut, the shadows danced wildly around the saloon, merging and twisting into a large, labyrinthine entity. Forms flickered as lost souls began to appear, pale and sorrowful faces emerging from the darkness, their eyes filled with longing and despair. "Help us!" one cried, reaching out with skeletal fingers. "Join us! Love will drown you, just as it has drowned us. Clara's heart ached at the sight of these lost souls, trapped forever between longing and despair. She stepped forward, determined to offer them a glimmer of hope. You don't have to stay bound by this curse. We've found a way to break free, to free you. But the darkness twisted in response, the murmurs growing louder and more chaotic, drowning out her voice. Foolish girl, Finch mocked, stepping back into the shadows. You think you can save what was never meant to live? Thomas took a step beside Clara, his heart racing at the idea that they faced not just one spirit, but an entire collective force. He gripped her hand tightly. We will not yield. We believe in the strength of love, and together we can drive you out. We can free these souls. With their voices intertwined, Thomas and Clara began to sing again, pouring all their heart and soul into each note. They harmonized, blending the echoes of their love with the power to heal, resonating through the haunted space of the hallowed rest. As the music flowed from them, the spirits hesitated, momentarily stunned by the aura of warmth that enveloped them. The charge in the air shifted, embracing the essence of hope, and the darkness began to falter. The shadows swirled around Finch, who looked increasingly wary as he realized the potency of their connection. Stop! He snarled, waving his arms in desperation. You can't do this! You are fools to think your love is enough! But Clara and Thomas pressed on, radiant in their defiance, their song igniting the spirit's long-forgotten desires for freedom. Faces that had once been anguished began to share in the warmth radiating from the couple, and with each note, the bond of despair tightened around Finch began to weaken. Let them go! Thomas shouted, his voice firm, cutting through the chaos. The shadows hesitated, and the lost souls looked toward each other, flickers of recognition igniting hope, where despair had reigned for so long. Clara's heart filled with determination, and she knew they had to push forward, to shatter the chains of the past. Together they wove their song with a crescendo, infusing every word with the power of love and resilience. The saloon reverberated with their melody, drowning out Finch's cries. No, you will pay for this! But it was too late. As their harmonies intertwined, a blinding light erupted from within the core of their love. The spirits began to dissolve, their essence merging with the flickering radiance that had enveloped the saloon. Thomas felt a surge of warmth surging through him. Each lost heart, each soul bound to despair, became intertwined with the joyous notes of liberation. Finch's laughter turned into a shriek as the shadows clawed at him, the light swallowing his darkness whole. You can't. Together, we are stronger, Clara and Thomas shouted as they reached the climax of their song, unleashing all their energy into a final note filled with promise, the promise of love conquering all darkness. The room erupted in brilliance, the chords echoing into infinity as the specter of despair shattered, consumed by the light of love. The hallowed rest trembled, and with a final burst of energy, the oppressive darkness dissolved into thin air. As the echoes faded, the saloon transformed. The heavy weight of despair lifted, and warmth filled the air, replaced by an exhilarating sense of freedom. Thomas and Clara stood hand in hand, victorious amid the remnants of their battle. The once haunted walls now glowed with renewed life, accompanied by the joyous laughter of patrons rediscovering the beauty of hope. I never doubted you, Clara said, her eyes sparkling with life. Together, Thomas replied. His heart swelled with gratitude and love. Always together. They had not only fought for themselves, but for every ghostly soul tied to the hallowed rest, transforming their pain into heartening stories of rebirth. The saloon now stood as a beacon of hope, forever marked as the place where love triumphed over despair, and darkness was no longer welcome. And with each passing day, the legacy of their love grew stronger, a reminder that together they could face anything, illuminating the boys' tale of the hallowed rest for generations to come. Months passed, and the hallowed rest thrived like never before. Its reputation shifted from that of a cursed saloon to a sanctuary, attracting travelers from far and wide, eager to share in the magic that had transformed its walls. Clara and Thomas became the heart and soul of the place, their love radiating warmth and joy that drew people in. Evenings were filled with laughter, music, and stories. Patrons gathered around tables, sharing tales over whiskey and beer, their camaraderie echoing through the saloon. Clara often sang, her voice a beacon that lifted spirits and ignited hope. Thomas worked the bar, serving drinks with a smile, and together they created an atmosphere welcoming to all. But as the saloon flourished, something unease began to creep into the edges of Thomas's mind. Whispers of the past still floated through the air, remnants of the souls they had freed. Though he embraced the newfound joy, he couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness might one day linger back into their lives. One evening, while closing the bar, Thomas noticed a figure sitting alone at a corner table shrouded in shadows. The faint hum of chatter began to fade as he approached. The man's face was obscured, but his eyes glinted with a knowing sadness that sent a chill through Thomas. "Can I get you something?" Thomas asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The man looked up, revealing a rugged face marked by weariness. "Just a drink," he replied, his voice gravelly, filled with a sense of foreboding. As Thomas poured a whiskey and slid it across the table, he couldn't help but feel something was off about this stranger. "What brings you to the hallowed rest?" he inquired, attempting to strike up a conversation. The man took a slow sip of his drink, his gaze drifting around the saloon. "I came to see the place that has made waves near and far. They say you've broken the curse. They say love conquered despair." "We did," Thomas replied proudly. "Love is powerful. It changed everything." "Is that so?" the man mused, his lips curling into a sardonic smile. "But love often has a price, doesn't it?" A knot formed in Thomas's stomach, as the man's words hung heavily in the air. "What do you mean?" The stranger leaned closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You think the darkness is defeated, but it is only biding its time. Remember, love attracts envy just as easily as it attracts light. The secret keepers are never far away." Thomas felt a shiver slide down his spine. "The secret keepers?" he echoed, recalling the wraith's warning. "Yes," the man continued, his eyes glinting with intensity. "They thrive on love, waiting for the moment it grows vulnerable. They will return, and when they do, they will not be pleased with you or Clara." "Who are you?" Thomas demanded, taking a step back. "What do you want?" "I am simply a messenger," the man said with a casual shrug. "Only here to remind you that shadows do not forget. They lurk and watch, waiting for the key moment to creep back into your life." With that, he rose from the table, and Thomas felt a wave of uncertainty crash over him. The man turned to leave, blending into the shadows of the saloon, leaving Thomas standing in stunned silence. The unease settled deep within him. He knew love was strong, but the weight of the man's words felt like a thundercloud darkening the light that had illuminated their lives. When Clara joined him in the bar moments later, she sensed his anxiety. "What's wrong?" she asked, concern etching her features. "There was a stranger," Thomas stammered. "He warned me." Clara's brow furrowed. "Warned you? About what?" "He said the darkness hasn't been defeated, that the secret keepers are watching us," Thomas replied, his voice tense. Clara's expression softened, but worry crept into her eyes. "We've faced darkness before, Thomas. Our love was strong enough to shatter despair. Perhaps this was just a ploy to scare you." "I hope that's all it is," Thomas said, his heart aching. "But I can't shake the feeling that it's not as simple as that." As the night wore on and the last patrons began to disappear into the starry sky, Thomas and Clara shared moments of laughter, yet the specter of uncertainty loomed ever closer. They danced together, wrapped in each other's arms, but shadows twisted and turned at the edges of their joy. Weeks turned into months again, and Thomas fortified himself with the belief that their love would be enough, that it would guard against the encroaching darkness. But each time he heard rumors echoing through the saloon, whispers of malevolent forces gathering strength, it gnawed at him. One particularly stormy night, thunder rumbled in the distance, and rain pelted the roof like impatient hands. It was then that the saloon was abuzz with tales from a new traveler, a young woman who had arrived from a neighboring town. She was captivating, her dark hair cascading over her shoulders like a waterfall, and her eyes sparkled with ethereal fervor. As she regaled the patrons with stories of the supernatural and whispered legends of the West, Thomas felt a sense of dread wash over him. Clara watched intently, impressed by the girl's tales. "What do you think?" Clara asked, her excitement palpable. But Thomas couldn't shake the feeling of danger that surrounded the girl. "I don't know. There's something about her. It feels wrong." Before Clara could respond, the storm outside grew fiercer, and the saloon lights flickered ominously. Slowly, a hush swept across the room as the girl continued. "And legend says," she proclaimed, her voice gaining strength, "that those who dare to defy the shadows will pay dearly. Love will not save you. It will bind you to your fate." The air thickened with unease, and Thomas stepped toward her, voice firm. "Why do you speak of darkness? This place has been freed." With a beguiling smile, she replied, "Ah, but love is never truly free, is it? The heart is a magnet, drawing attention from forces you cannot comprehend." At that moment, the shadows in the corners began to shift, writhing as if stirred by a hidden power. The patrons murmured, and Clara tightened her grip on Thomas's arm, uncertainty flickering across her face. Suddenly the door swung open, and cold air rushed in, accompanied by an otherworldly whisper. The shadows elongated, stretching towards the light like fingers reaching out to reclaim what was lost. Thomas felt a primal instinct ignite within him. "Stay away from her," he shouted, stepping protectively in front of Clara. But the girl merely laughed, her gaze piercing through the chaos. "You think you can shield her from the darkness? Those who have loved as fiercely as you will always attract attention." The storm raged on outside, thunder echoing through the rafters, and lost souls began to manifest. Figures rising from the depths of the shadows, faces twisted in pain and longing, whispering their stories. "Foolish lovers, you think you can fight us?" they cried in unison, their voices a chilling symphony, the despair echoing through the saloon. "You've awakened us, and we will not be forgotten." Heart-pounding, Thomas turned to Clara, eyes filled with resolve. "We have to stand together. We've conquered darkness before. We'll do it again." With all his might he gripped her hand, and together they began to sing once more, pouring their hearts into each note, igniting a fierce light that drove back the shadows. The saloon trembled, and the spirits howled in anguish as they fought against the couple's bond. As light burst forth, illuminating the space with radiant energy, the darkness recoiled, twisting and flickering like a candle's flame about to be snuffed out. The strangers' laughter faded, replaced by cries of the haunted, as they fought for their freedom against the very love that had once failed them. "Together we can break this cycle," Clara shouted, her voice rising over the chaos. "We will not be bound by darkness again." Empowered by their love, they reached deeper into the well of strength that had guided them through their trials. The light swelled, encompassing the saloon, casting the shadows out into the forgotten cracks of despair. With one piercing note they hit the pitch that shattered the darkness, and the echoes of lost souls began to wane. The shadows dissipated, and with one final pulse of light, the specters of the past were freed, finally released from their anguish. But Thomas and Clara both knew, in the back of their minds, that love always carried with it a shadow, a reminder that darkness can linger, watching, waiting, but it would never extinguish the power of their bond. As calm returned, the saloon breathed a sigh, and the darkness melted away into mere echoes. Thomas, standing beside Clara, realized that while the shadows may lurk, their love had become a bright beacon, a force that could withstand anything, illuminating the darkest of nights. And in that, they found their greatest strength. They would face whatever came next, together. In the aftermath of the confrontation, the hallowed rest returned to a semblance of normalcy, but the air carried a different weight, a sense of vigilance. Thomas and Clara continued to run the saloon, their bond shining brighter with each passing day. Yet the lingering whispers of the past remained a constant reminder. Despite the absence of the spectral forces that had haunted the saloon, tales flourished, rumors curling through the air like smoke. Visitors would arrive, curious to witness the place where love overcame darkness. But with interest came caution. Thomas noticed an unsettling trend. More travelers spoke of the secret keepers, of ominous forces watching, ever present. One rainy afternoon, as patrons nestled by the flickering warmth of lanterns, a man entered the saloon, a traveler with a heavy coat drenched from the storm outside. He shook off the rain and made his way to the bar, his eyes scanning the room before settling on Thomas and Clara. "Is this the famed hallowed rest?" he asked, his voice strong but tinged with the remnants of fear. "The very one," Thomas replied, wiping down the counter. "What brings you here?" "I've heard tales of your victory against the shadows," the man said, his gaze piercing. "But I've also heard warnings about the secret keepers. They say they never truly leave." "What do you know of them?" Clara asked, her curiosity piqued despite the apprehension churning in her stomach. The traveler leaned in closer, lowering his voice as if fearing eavesdroppers. "I've traveled from a distant town, a place plagued by the resurgence of dark forces. It seems your victory has drawn their attention." At that, Thomas felt the ground shift beneath him. "What do you mean?" "The secret keepers thrive when their power is threatened. Your love may have freed some souls, but in doing so you've stirred something much older, a darkness they command. They will not rest until they reclaim what they believe is theirs." Clara exchanged a glance with Thomas, her heart racing. "What do we do?" "There may be a way," the traveler continued, his expression grave. "There are relics of an ancient order believed to provide protection against these forces. If you gather them, you may stand a chance at shielding your love and the saloon from the shadows that seek to return." "What kind of relics?" Thomas inquired, leaning forward, his mind racing with possibilities. "The most revered is said to be the Heartstone, a gem infused with the essence of true love. It grants strength against despair and keeps the darkness at bay. But it's hidden within the ruins of a once great cathedral, now overrun with shadows." "And how do we find this place?" Clara pressed, determination igniting in her voice. The traveler pulled a weathered map from his coat pocket, laying it across the bar. Lines and markings traced routes leading into the heart of the wilderness, outlining the treacherous terrain. "Follow this path. It will take you to the ruins. But be warned, courage alone may not suffice. The journey is fraught with perils, including the spirits of those who fell victim to the darkness." Not willing to entertain doubts, Thomas and Clara exchanged looks filled with resolve. "We'll do it," Thomas declared, clenching his fists. "We will find the Heartstone." As the rain continued to pour outside, the weight of their decision settled heavily upon them. With preparations underway, they gathered supplies, eager to face whatever dangers lay ahead. Innumerable stars sparkled in the night sky as they set out beneath the watchful glow of the moon, hearts intertwined with determination. The woods quickly enveloped them, trees towering high like sentinels guarding long-forgotten secrets. The path grew narrow, twisting through thickets and treacherous hollows. Owls hooted in the distance, their calls echoing through the silence. Yet as dark as it was, Thomas felt an unyielding strength beside him, the warmth of Clara's resolve bolstering his spirit. As they ventured deeper, the very essence of the forest morphed. Shadows danced at the edges of their sight, whispers threading through the air, reminding them of the challenge they had undertaken. "Stay close," Thomas urged, wrapping an arm around Clara's shoulder. Together they pressed forward, hearts beating in unison against the growing uncertainty. By dawn, they arrived at the remnants of the cathedral, its towering stone facade crumbling yet majestic against the rising sun. Vines snaked across the once great entrance, and eerie silence swallowed them as they stepped inside. Long-forgotten chants seemed to cling to the air, swirling like specters within the shadows. "We can't turn back now," Clara whispered, steeling herself as they ventured further into the sacred ruins. The Heartstone has to be here. As they traversed the dilapidated halls, time-worn murals depicting love and loss adorned the walls. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light, bleeding through cracked stained glass, illuminating faded images. But the beauty of the scenes was marred by the unsettling aura enveloping them, the lingering presence of the souls who had once called this place home. "Over there," Thomas pointed, his voice tense as they approached what appeared to be the altar, a stone pedestal that had seen ages pass. Upon it lay a small, shimmering stone, radiating with a faint light, pulsating gently as if echoing the rhythm of love itself. Clara's breath caught in her throat. "The Heartstone," she breathed, reaching for it. But as her fingers grazed its surface, the shadows that had lingered throughout the cathedral began to surge. Dark figures emerged from the walls, their forms grotesque and shimmering, twisted remnants of those who had once been bound to despair. "You have no right to take the Heartstone," a voice echoed from the depths of the darkness, a chilling embodiment of anguish. "Let's go, Clara," Thomas shouted, pulling her back as shadows rushed forward, creeping toward them like an encroaching tide. "No!" Clara cried, her determination burning bright. "We must fight for it." As the shadows closed in, swirls of darkness threatening to swallow them whole, Clara turned to Thomas, an unspoken understanding passing between them. Together, they began to sing once more, voices entwining in a powerful harmony, fueled by the essence of their love. With each note, the Heartstone shone brighter, illuminating the chamber and pushing back against the encroaching darkness. The shadows screamed in agony, swirling in conflict, wrestling against the power radiating from their love. "Hold on!" Thomas urged Clara, their voices building to a crescendo. As the final note rang out, a blinding brilliance erupted, engulfing the room in a pure, cleansing light. The shadows writhed and screeched before bursting apart, dissipating like clouds into the ether. The Heartstone flew into their hands, pulsating with energy that erased the remnants of despair. Breathless, they stood together, the cathedral bathed in light, the oppressive presence gone. "We did it!" Thomas gasped, disbelief washing over him. Clara clutched the Heartstone tightly, her heart brimming with gratitude. "We did, and now we have the power to protect what we hold dear." With renewed purpose, they made their way back through the woods toward the hallowed rest, each step coursing through them with the strength of the Heartstone. They would not only safeguard their love, but the love of all who came seeking refuge in their once cursed home. And though the shadows may linger, Thomas and Clara knew that the light would always prevail, their hearts forever intertwined as they prepared for whatever challenges awaited them in the future. Together, they would face the dark and the light, forever vigilant, forever strong. As Thomas and Clara approached the hallowed rest, a sense of triumphant joy surged within them. They could feel the Heartstone pulsing in Clara's grasp, invigorating their spirits as they neared the saloon. Patrons were still buzzing with stories, unaware of the darkness that had so recently threatened their sanctuary. Stepping through the doors, the familiar ambiance wrapped around them, a blend of laughter, warmth, and camaraderie. But as they entered, a hushed silence settled over the crowd. Conversations halted, and faces turned toward them. The glimmer of the Heartstone in Clara's hand caught the flickering candlelight, sending ripples of interest through the gathered patrons. "What happened?" called out an elder rancher from the back, concern threading his voice as he leaned against the bar. "Did you find it?" "We did," Thomas declared, stepping forward with renewed confidence. "We found the Heartstone." Cheers erupted in the saloon, and a wave of exhilaration sparked through the patrons. Clara lifted the Heartstone high, and the joyous celebration filled the air once more. Yet amidst the revelry, Thomas couldn't shake a sense of unease. He watched the flickering lanterns throw dancing shadows across the room, and a part of him remained alert. Clara sensed it too, her brows knitting together in concern. As the night wore on, tales of their adventures spread like wildfire, and they recounted their harrowing journey through the ruins. The triumph of recovering the Heartstone swirled around them, but whispers of the darkness loomed, a palpable tension under the surface. More and more, Patrons voiced concerns of the secret keepers, feeling the warning winds of change in the air. Just as you've summoned light, darkness can rise again, an old miner warned, his weathered visage grave beneath the soft glow. We need to be prepared. Prepared for what? Clara asked, curiosity piquing her interest. We have the Heartstone. We can protect ourselves. If only it were that easy, lass, he replied, shaking his head slowly. The heart of the party might beat strong, but shadows are patient. They'll twist and turn, searching for a way back. Thomas felt a knot tighten in his stomach at the old miner's words, but he countered with determination. We'll guard the hallowed rest. Together, we'll stand watch, ensuring that our love and community remain safe. The evening unfolded with laughter and song, yet an undercurrent of vigilance shadowed them all. Thomas and Clara felt it. A bond had formed among the patrons, an unspoken pact to protect their haven. They began to work together, reinforcing the saloon, enhancing the bond of community. As days passed, Thomas and Clara integrated the Heartstone into their lives. It graced the bar, emanating warmth, and its presence cultivated an air of safety within the hallowed rest. Patrons felt emboldened, buoyed by the power of love that thrived amongst them. Yet late one night, as a thin drizzle danced against the saloon's windows, darkness clawed its way back. Thomas awoke with a start, a deep sense of foreboding flooding his senses. Clara stirred beside him, instinctively sensing his disturbance. "What is it?" she murmured, her voice hushed but steady. "I don't know," he replied, tossing the bedcovers aside. "Something doesn't feel right." He slipped out of bed, the chill of the floor sending a shiver through his spine as he walked toward the window. Rain fell heavy, obscuring the view of the street outside. The light from the saloon provided scant comfort, and he turned to Clara, concern etched on his face. "We should check on things," he said, urgency creeping into his tone. Hand in hand, they made their way through the dim halls and down the creaking staircase. The low murmur of voices drifted through the air, but Thomas could hear something else. A dissonant whisper curling like smoke around them. As they stepped into the saloon, the atmosphere shifted. Patrons were gathered at the far end, their expressions shifting from laughter to unease, eyes wide with confusion. "What's happening?" Thomas inquired, scanning the crowd. "Just before you were awoken, there was a commotion," said Mrs. Hallowed, her hands shaking slightly as she gestured toward the doorway. "The shadows. They're returning." Suddenly the doors swung open, slamming against the walls with a force that sent ripples of fear through the crowd. A cold wind whistled in, twisting through the room like a living entity. With it came a figure, shrouded in tattered cloth, its form eerily familiar, yet deeply unsettling. "Feed me!" hissed the wraith-like entity, its voice a harsh rasp that clung to the air. "Your love is a beacon, and I am drawn to its light." The saloon held its breath, terror frozen in the hearts of its patrons. Darkness coiled around the intruder, weaving its way into the room. Thomas stepped protectively in front of Clara, the Heartstone glowing fiercely in her palm. "Leave this place," he commanded, firm resolve threading through his words. "You have no power here. Foolish boy, you believe the Heartstone can protect you?" The entity mocked, taking a menacing step forward. "Love can sunder the darkness, but shadows are relentless. I come from a lineage of despair. I will not be denied." At that moment, several souls emerged from the darkness, flickering specters of those who had once fallen victim to the saloon's curse. They swirled around the entity, each bemoaning their fate with echoes of anguish. "Join us! Join us!" they cried, longing for the warmth of love they had lost. With every ounce of bravery, Clara raised the Heartstone, its luminescence cutting through the swelling darkness. "You will not take us!" she shouted, her voice unwavering. As the Heartstone brightened, a powerful wave surged through the saloon. Thomas felt the warmth radiate, igniting hope in those who stood with them. Encouraged by her bravery, he echoed her sentiments. "Together!" he shouted. "We will not let love falter. We will stand firm." Thrusting their voices into the fray, Thomas and Clara began to sing. Not just the two of them, but all the patrons, each heart forging powerful notes, creating an anthem of love and unity. The tumultuous waves of darkness shrieked in retaliation as the song intensified, resonating with a force that vibrated through the very bones of the hallowed rest. The wraith struggled, its form flickering and shifting under the force of the collective love enveloping the saloon. Shadows danced madly, social ties constricting around the darkness, squeezing tightly until it began to withdraw. "No!" the entity howled, rage fueling its energy. "You cannot be free!" But love burned brighter. The heartstone pulsed in Clara's grip, illuminating the darkest corners with an unwavering glow. The shadows trembled and recoiled further, desperate to escape the resonating melody that filled the air. With a final surge of power, their voices broke into a soaring crescendo, an explosion of love piercing the veil of despair. The darkness shattered, piercing the room with brilliant light. Wails echoed as the figures dissolved into thin air, their anguished cries fading like distant memories. And just like that, silence reclaimed the saloon once more. Gasping for breath, the patrons looked around, disbelief shadowing their faces. Clara and Thomas stood at the center, hands interlocked, knowing that they had triumphed once again over the dark forces that sought to reclaim their love. Heartbeats began to synchronize, and a sense of relief cascaded through the room. They were not alone. They faced their struggles together. Thomas raised Clara's hand high, the heartstone glittering brightly, a reminder of their unity and resilience. "Tonight, we have proven that love will forever conquer darkness," he proclaimed, his voice echoing through the saloon. Cheers erupted once more, voices ringing with joy and laughter, echoing into the night. Though shadows may linger, hope would never fade. They were a community fortified by love, prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. And with that, Thomas and Clara began the dance of life, the heartstone's glow lighting the way for all those who dared to believe in the power of love. As dawn broke over the hallowed rest, a new day unfurled with the promise of hope and renewal. The saloon remained a sanctuary, its walls infused with the energy of love and the strength forged in battle. Patrons filtered in with the soft glow of sunlight, their laughter ringing out like a testament to resilience amidst shadows that had once threatened to consume them. Yet while the atmosphere was jubilant, Clara and Thomas could not shake the awareness of the darkness that loomed just outside their sanctuary. Although they had faced the wraith and defeated it once, the travelers' warning echoed in their minds, the idea that the secret keepers were still lurking, waiting for the moment of vulnerability. Determined to fortify their stronghold, Thomas proposed a plan. "We will host a festival," he declared one evening. "A celebration of love and unity. We will invite everyone from the surrounding towns, friends, families, give them a reason to embrace togetherness, a reminder that love will always prevail." Clara's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. "Yes, we can fill the saloon with joy and laughter, drown out those whispers of darkness with our light." Preparations began in earnest. Colorful banners were strung across the entrance, and festive lanterns were hung from the rafters. The sound of music filled the air as Clara and Thomas organized dances, contests, and games. Stories of their recent victory murmured among the townsfolk, igniting excitement and drawing more people into their fold. As word traveled through the plains, the festival drew near, and the saloon buzzed with anticipation. A sense of camaraderie grew stronger. Families and friends arrived in droves, eager to participate in the celebration and support the union forged in the face of adversity. The sun dipped low, painting the horizon in shades of orange and pink, the festival lights flickering to life. Clara and Thomas welcomed their guests, their hearts swelling with pride at the sight of so many faces filled with joy. They danced, sang, and toasted to the love that united them all. Yet as the festivities unfolded, Thomas felt an unsettling shift in the air. The whispers returned, though they were muffled by the clamor of celebration. Dancers twirled, laughter erupted, but Thomas sensed an undercurrent of danger lurking in the shadows. Amidst this chorus of life, A figure emerged at the edge of the dance floor, a shadow clad in dark clothing that seemed to absorb the light around it. Thomas's heart raced as he recognized the familiar ghostly visage of the traveler from before. The man appeared drawn and ragged, his presence chilling the warmth of the festival. "Do not let your guard down," he warned, his voice cutting through the sounds of laughter like a knife. "You may have won a battle, but the war is far from over." At his words, the music halted abruptly, and a hush fell over the crowd. Eyes turned toward the figure as he stepped closer, dread creeping into the hearts of those gathered. "Listen to me. The secret keepers grow restless. They seek not just your love, but the hearts of the innocent. They will come for the festival, seeking to turn your joy into despair," the traveler continued, urgency lacing his tone. Gasps erupted as patrons exchanged worried glances, uncertainty coursing through the crowd. Clara's heart raced, and she stepped forward defiantly. "We won't let them take our joy. We've come too far and fought too hard. Your bravery is admirable, but your faith must be fortified," the traveler countered, shaking his head. "The secret to overcoming them lies not just in love, but in unity and vigilance. They'll exploit moments of doubt." Thomas felt the weight of the traveler's warning settle heavily over him, shadows creeping in around the edges of their joyous gathering. "So what do we do?" he asked, determination steering his response. "Build your defenses," the traveler urged. "Form bonds with each other. Strengthen your resolve. The Heartstone will protect you, but only if your love is backed by an unwavering community." In that moment, the energy shifted. The patrons rallied together, their fears spilling into action. Clara and Thomas took charge, organizing small groups to talk about experiences, share stories, and establish a wall of friendship, love, and determination around the hallowed rest. They spoke of why they fought, igniting flames of passion within each other. As vibrant colors decorated the barn and laughter echoed, a new melody infiltrated the tension, weaving through the atmosphere, a blend of teamwork, hope, and camaraderie that felt tangible. The Heartstone, resting on the bar, glinted approvingly, reminding them of their strength. While they bolstered their defenses, the night wore on. The festival resumed, laughter piercing through darkened corners. Yet, as shadows danced along the periphery, Clara felt an unease gnaw at her heart. It wasn't enough to simply celebrate love. They had to confront the darkness head-on. As the clock struck midnight, the atmosphere shifted strangely. The flames flickered in response, an ominous chill encircling the room. Suddenly the door burst open, and a gust of wind swept into the saloon, extinguishing lanterns and plunging the room into darkness. The crowd gasped, voices of fear mixed with confusion ricocheting against the walls. Thomas gripped Clara's hand, and they locked eyes, determination pooling in their shared gaze. "We stand together," he shouted, rallying the patrons, gathering their courage against encroaching shadows. As the darkness thickened, shapes began to emerge, the wraith-like figures of the secret keepers spilling forward, their forms twisting with rage. "Fools!" they hissed, echoing in the recesses of the hallowed rest. "You think love will protect you? You have awakened us." "Not this time," Clara declared, her voice resolute despite the chilling presence surrounding them. "We will protect each other." Thomas and Clara stepped forward, heartbeats steadying as they raised the Heartstone high, its light illuminating the devastation around them. "We are stronger together," they cried as one. The room erupted into action. Patrons grabbed hands, forming a chain, pooling their love and strength together to create a barrier of light. Songs echoed through the saloon, underscoring the bond forged by genuine connection. With each note sung, the darkness recoiled. The secret keepers writhed as they were met with the collective vibrancy of easily the bonds being formed. "No, it cannot be!" they screamed. But Clara and Thomas, their hearts beating as one, filled the saloon with a surge of light and love. The collective strength of family and friends swept through, pushing back the shadows that had come to steal their joy. In that moment, as their voices rose together, The hearthstone pulsed violently, immediately causing the darkness to splinter and crack. The lights flickered back to life, restoring the brilliance to the saloon. With one last resounding harmony, they sent the darkness screaming into the night, isolated into hopelessness. The saloon washed in warmth as the shadows fled, vanquished beneath the power of unwavering love. As calm returned, cheers erupted once more, filling the room with unadulterated joy. Clara turned to Thomas, breathless. "We did it!" "We did indeed," he exclaimed, pulling her close as laughter surrounded them. The shadows had been cast away, but the memory of their battle lingered, a reminder that love could overcome even the darkest of forces. Together they lit candles in the windows, symbols of hope reflecting against the darkened sky. They stood as pillars of unity, their hearts forever intertwined, as they would guard against whatever darkness lay ahead. Waves of gratitude washed over the saloon as patrons danced, twirled, and lifted their glasses high. The festival continued, threading together stories of love and resilience to celebrate not just victory, but the laughter, the joy, and the promise of tomorrow in their cherished haven. And so it was, within the walls of the hallowed rest, where love reigned supreme, and the darkness never lingered longer than the light that filled their hearts. The legacy of their bond resided within every melody sung, within every soul that came through those doors, ever reminding them that love truly conquers all.